Just a quick announcement. We're going to give everyone about another 5 minutes to kind of get here. We've got a class that's getting finished, and so we'll just give them a couple more minutes. So those of you who are on the live stream, hang in there with us. Thank you. I think we ought to get started, and we're about 5 minutes after. So good evening, everyone. On behalf of the University of San Diego and our cybersecurity community, it is my pleasure to welcome each of you to our semi-annual USD Fall Cyber Mixer. We've been doing these up until the time that we kind of broke for COVID. We were doing these on a regular basis, and maybe some of you have been to a few of these before, I don't know. But we're glad that you're here with us tonight. We welcome not only you that are here with us in the audience, and I'm sure we will have many others that will be coming in person, but we also expect to have about 200 online in our virtual part of the program. This semi-annual event is a way for each of us that are here at USD in our cyber program to express our appreciation to each of you, our students, alumni, and our prospective students that are here as well. It's also an opportunity for us to let you connect with our speakers and our industry partners that are here with us tonight. My name is Mark Castellano, and I am part of our USD CSET. That's Cyber Ops, it's the It's the Center for Cybersecurity, Engineering and Technology. And we are glad to be able to talk a little bit about that as well. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. I talked to these two ladies who drove down from Los Angeles, and I'm sure others have driven here from other areas as well. We thank you for being here with us this evening. The theme of tonight's program, as you can see on the board, is Cyber AI Symbiosis, a new era of security intelligence. So we're going to be covering a lot of territory tonight, a lot of new territory, and we appreciate you, again, being here. Before I introduce our participants tonight, we would like to do a quick shout out to our industry partners, the Naval Information Warfare Center, Pacific Fleet here in the area, Sequan Casino, who was not able to be with us tonight, and Women in Cybersecurity. And you'll see their booths outside when you go out into the rotunda later on. We'd also like to have a special shout out to Data Link Networks, Don and Brian, who are here with us tonight. Thanks, guys, for your help with everything. Okay, so the program tonight will proceed as follows. First, we will have a keynote speaker, Mr. Benny Bulchko. I'm not sure if I said it the right way, Benny, but anyway, Benny will be speaking to us right after I turn the mic over to him. And then following Benny's remarks, there will be some time also for some Q&A at the end of his presentation. Following Benny's keynote address, we'll turn time over to Haidar Majid and James Perano to present the Adversus system that they have been working on. That'll be an exciting presentation tonight and demo. We will then break. After that, we'll break to have our mixer area out in the rotunda area, where we will be serving food and drinks, and there'll be an opportunity for each of you to meet with our industry partners and discuss internships, job opportunities, whatever you want to do, questions about their operations and so forth. So, with that said, I would like to turn the time over to Benny for his keynote address. Thank you, Benny. But a nice warm welcome for Benny as well.
All righty. I'm going to try not to read my notes as much as I can. First and foremost, I want to thank the team here at the university for having me speak, specifically Haidar and the rest of the team, so I don't forget anyone. It's an honor, it's a pleasure to be here, speak with you folks. We got some exciting stuff. We're going to talk about enhanced security using AI. My name is Benny. Some of you have heard Mark pronounce my last name. You're probably wondering, how the heck do I say that? I'm a foreigner. I'm originally from Bosnia. I immigrated here in the early 90s. And I know that this presentation is not going to be all about me, but just to give you guys a little bit of background so you know who you're speaking with. So I came to the United States in the early 90s. I basically grew up extremely poor. I left a war-torn country to come to the United States for a better life with my family. Fast forward to today, I am a senior channel solutions architect at Barracuda. And so I want to go back to when I first came to the United States and basically how my love for technology began. And that is with that big yellow, sort of gray, beige type device on the left you see there. And boy, when you had one of those, you were the bee's knees. So that's really how things started. My father, after months and months of saving, was able to buy our first computer. The reason why he purchased it, not because he liked computers, it was because he liked to stay in touch with family back overseas in Europe, using forums, chat groups, things like that. And that's really where I first started, Windows 95. That's kind of my beginning there. And if you look at the picture to the right, I hope a lot of people know what a floppy disk is. Not the save button in your Microsoft Office, but those are actual tools that I used growing up. And funny story is, when I was in school and we had assignments due, basically I found a way to alter the floppy disk in such a way that you could connect it to the computer could read it, but when you open the file didn't want to open. So that gave me another day or two to actually redo my assignment and extend my time, so I thought that was pretty cool. So this is essentially in the era I grew up in. And then, let's talk a little bit about my career so you guys understand kind of where I came from and how I came to be today. I will say that it was extremely difficult finding a job in the IT industry after the housing market crash in 2008. And that's kind of the time frame where I was first starting to look for my first IT job. And so I was in college at the time. I graduated high school, and I was determined to find a job in the IT space before I graduated college. I consider myself a natural-born hustler when it comes to that type of stuff, so I really, really, really wanted to have something set in stone before I actually graduated, so I didn't have to panic and, all right, let's find a job. So basically what I did was I worked a bunch of different odd jobs. I was a waiter. I worked in a retirement home. I worked as a barber. I worked as a graphic design artist. I worked so many different jobs, but ultimately all of those odd jobs led me to my first job, which was a help desk technician. And the way I got that job was simply by networking. The importance of networking, networking is very important, because without that networking, without discussing with people, meeting people, having simple conversations, I wouldn't have gotten my foot in the door in the IT industry. So I met this gentleman by the name of John. John was a brother-in-law to a really good friend of mine. I actually was cutting his hair as I was working as a barber. And we started talking, and I said, listen, man, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I wanted to get into the IT industry. This is what I'm going to school for. Really wanted to get my first job. And so he liked my charisma, he liked my personality, and he said, you know what, I'm going to talk to my boss, and we'll see what happens. And so long story short, he came back, I had an interview, I got my first gig back in 2012. And so that's really the start of my IT career. And where I worked was Manhattan in New Jersey. And so basically what I would do is I would support a bunch of different industries and different customers with a managed services provider, an MSP. And so what we did was project services, help desk, right, implementing new firewalls, things like that. So, and the different industries we supported was the music industry, financial industry, investment banking, publishing, law firms, so a lot of different verticals where I learned a ton of different things. Another funny story is I was one of the IT managers or consulting managers for the record label of Creed and Evanescence. I always like to kind of brag about that, so I thought that was pretty cool. Fast forward after a couple years, I left New York. I didn't really like living in New York, too crowded. I ended up moving to Michigan. Michigan, I worked for another managed services provider. I thought that I didn't have enough experience to look elsewhere, and I said, you know what, I'm going to stick to this industry. There's a lot to be learned. And so in Michigan, the verticals were a lot different. This is where I encountered a lot of manufacturing companies. In Michigan, you'll find a ton of businesses with regards to manufacturing, especially all the automotive industry. Also local government, like sheriff's departments, courthouses, things like that, 911 dispatch centers. And so using all of those different verticals and all those different technologies, I was really able to absorb all of this information like a sponge, right? I was very young at the time, and that's really what I was looking for. By that time, I had already graduated college. I was already, had my career set in stone. And then after a few years in Michigan, roughly about 5 years, I ended up taking up a job and taking the big leap from IT to cybersecurity. And so I took a job for a MSSP, for those that don't know, is a managed security services provider. And it was a remote job out of Colorado where I would basically focus on strictly security and not the day-to-day IT stuff, which is what I was used to. It was a whole new vertical. It was totally different. I wasn't used to it. But after a few months, I excelled so much that I found an opportunity at Barracuda. And here I am today at Barracuda, still to this day, 4 years later, roughly speaking, still at Barracuda. And so one of the things I was able to do is after working with all these different companies and these different verticals, working with these different technologies, I was able to experience a lot of different things. I was able to try different things and notice things I didn't like. And so one thing I can say that I really liked is that face-to-face engagement with customers. I liked working with people, I liked talking to people, I liked sales, but I didn't want to give up the technology, right? So sales is one thing. I didn't want to do dedicated sales. I didn't want to do dedicated hands-on engineering. I wanted a mixture of both. And at Barracuda, I was happy to find that mixture as a solutions engineer at the time. So, who is Barracuda? Hint, it is not a fish, at least in this context. It is actually a fish, but not in this context. So, a little bit about Barracuda. Barracuda, actually, quick show of hands. Who here has heard of Barracuda prior to me coming here? Okay, a few of you. So Barracuda is a cybersecurity company in a nutshell. Our motto is, we are here to protect and support our customers for life. We deliver innovative security products that are easy to buy, easy to deploy, and easy to use. So we give you the tools you need to heighten your cybersecurity posture, whether you are a small business, whether you're an enterprise organization. The comprehensive tool sets we have are email protection, network and cloud application protection, data protection and backup, security-centric RMM, managed XDR with a 24/7 security operations center. On the right, you can see some of the accolades we've won recently in the last year or so. And I want to share a little story with Barracuda. It's quite interesting, more of an entrepreneurial story. How Barracuda came to existence. So there's a gentleman by the name of Dean Draco. Dean Draco is one of the founders of Barracuda. And basically, in the early 2000s, there was a very big spam problem. People had on-premise Exchange servers. Everyone was getting spam. And there was really no spam filter. There's no spam filtering solution. There was nothing of that sort. And so Dean Draco and his co-founders basically said, you know what, this is the future. We need to build something to protect against this spam. And so he basically built a website, Barracuda Networks, started marketing the concept of a spam filter, and then he gets a phone call one day. Hey, you guys have that spam filter solution? Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah, we do. Okay, perfect. How much is it, right? They said the cost, and it was a pretty astronomical cost if you ask me. And then they basically said, okay, no problem, I need 5 of them. When in reality, it was just a concept. They didn't even build the solution yet. It was literally just a thought. Nothing was engineered, nothing was created. So what Dean had said, okay, no problem, but the only caveat is we're about 6 weeks out on back order. Meanwhile, nothing was even sold. The product wasn't even created. So the person said, you know what, that's fine, we'll wait for it, we need a product, we're good to go. So he took the payment, right? And then he turned over to his co-founder, who was the person responsible for the engineering portion. He said, listen, you got 6 weeks to figure this out. And that's essentially how Barracuda Networks came to be, is through that spam filter and through selling a product that did not exist. So I thought that was a pretty interesting story to share. So why are we here? Why are you here? Why am I here? Why are we in this industry? Why are we studying to be cybersecurity professionals? Well, I'll tell you one reason, and that is we want the money, right? No one wants to work for free. Everyone wants to get paid, right? That's one reason. It is a very lucrative business, I will say. But there's other reasons, right? And the other reasons is that there's a massive talent shortage out there in the world. And so this map is going to depict all of the open job recs worldwide as of last year. So you can see in the United States, there's over 500,000 jobs open in the cybersecurity space. Look at the Asia Pacific market, 2.6 million jobs are open. So what does this say? This says that you guys are necessary. This industry is needed. Well, why is it needed? It's because there is a constant rise in cybersecurity, especially as of last year. I feel like every 3 days, I'm seeing a new article about a new breach, a new vulnerability, a new compromise of some sort. And I'm sure you guys see it as well. People share it on Facebook, LinkedIn, right? And so just to share some statistics here, in 2023, we saw approximately 2 million attacks, right? And then when we look at what the trend is set for 2024, there will be over 8 million different attacks, right? And so what we've also noticed is that there's a 300% increase in password spray attacks, ransomware attempts, brute force attacks, phishing, malware, business email compromise attempts. But what else is interesting is that in 2023, we saw 200 approximately significant threat actors out there. And by significant, I mean the big groups. Whereas when we look today, Barracuda is tracking over 2,000 threat actors today. And that number is just going to continue to rise. The other problem we're noticing is that organizations are experiencing operational complexity. So what I mean by that is there's all these new technologies. Everyone's implementing, there's no on-premise file servers anymore. There's no on-premise Exchange servers. Everything's in the cloud. And all these new technologies means more complexity. And so what we find is that organizations are using, on average, approximately 80 different security tools. And so when you look at it, we have a spam filter, we have firewalls, we have endpoint protection, we have the security system, we have door locks. Those are all security tools. And when we add it all up, it amounts to about 80 different products. And so why is that difficult? Now you, as a security professional, you have to manage all these 80 different products. Now that slide I showed you earlier about the open job recs, you saw 500,000 jobs open in the United States, but globally, everything combined, there's over 4 million open jobs worldwide. Now what else is interesting is we saw more than a quarter of business leaders are very concerned about their data and their intellectual property. And the reason for that is the rise in AI. So the question is who is seeing my data? Who is accessing my data? Which data brokers are selling my data? Those are all questions no one really knows how to answer. Now this is probably the most compelling slide I have here to show. And what we're looking at here is annual GDP in comparison to cybercrime. And so look at the United States annual GDP. It is set to be 27 trillion this year. And then the next runner-up is China, 17.8 trillion. And then right after China, we have cybercrime. Cybercrime's not a country, but it is the third largest economy out there. It is almost double Germany's annual GDP, almost double Japan's annual GDP. That to me is staggering. That means there's more cybercrime, there's more money lost due to cybercrime than the entire economy of Germany. It's crazy. But also look at the right graph here, GDP annual growth rate. The fastest growing economy is cybercrime, 15%, more than double the next runner-up, which is India. These are staggering results. And the other thing is that it's going to keep increasing, which is why I need to emphasize the need for you cybersecurity professionals. So AI is really changing the game for attackers. It is really giving attackers another tool in their tool belt. And so what it's allowing for is the increase of volume of attacks. Attackers now can move faster and improve the quality of their attacks. And they're also able to personalize these attacks to make the attacks harder to detect. And so who has the advantage today? I truly believe that the attackers have the advantage. When we sum everything up, and I got to read this, when we sum everything up, the attackers know that there's one in three cyber security jobs are open. The attackers know that there's an increasing threat landscape, fragmented security tools. They get to use AI to streamline things. They have all of these benefits and all of these things in their favor, whereas we as the defenders, we have to be 100% right all the time. And that's impossible. There is no product out there that can 100% guarantee protection at all times. There's no 10 products that can do that. There's layers in defense, but no one will ever be 100% right or 100% secure. And so if we are 90% secure, that leaves that 10% gap of a backdoor entry point for an attacker to exploit. So how can we tip the scale back into our favor? Well, I want to introduce you to this gentleman here. Does anyone know who this man is? Okay, it's not Steve Jobs. This is John McCarthy. John McCarthy is an American computer scientist. He organized the Dartmouth Conference in 1956. And in the Dartmouth Conference, he was responsible for creating programs to simulate aspects of human intelligence. He was later dubbed the father of AI. Let's take a look at the evolution of AI. So as we just said, 1956, really that was the beginning with John McCarthy's Dartmouth Foundation. Now, when we look at machine learning, right, machine learning became more prominent in the 1980s with a significant raise in application and research from the 1980s onwards. I'm trying to read my notes here, but it's very small. Deep learning. Deep learning started to gain significant traction in the 2010s, especially with the advancements in computing power, large-scale data sets. This is where we had more robust computers, more resources available. Technology at this point was booming. And then when we fast forward to today, which is generative AI. This is where most people are familiar with ChatGPT, Google Gemini, right? And this is really where all these other businesses, all these other technology providers are now generating their own form of AI. Microsoft has it, Google has it, Barracuda has one. And this is set to only increase. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the specifics of machine learning because there's machine learning and then there's also generative AI. So I want you to turn your attention to the technology section all the way to the left. And so, of course, we're going to collect data, right? There's data collection, there's data processing, then there's data analysis. And we use various different algorithms to do that data analysis. But I really want to turn your attention to the learning portion. We have supervised learning, we have unsupervised learning, and then we have reinforcement learning. So to give you an understanding of what those are, supervised learning is if there are two data sets, and I say this data set has a label, and that label is that this is a dog, and this data set, we label it as a cat. So now the algorithm knows that based off of the label, this is a dog, this is a cat. Whereas with unsupervised learning uses the algorithm to look at the characteristics to indicate whether something is a dog or a cat based on the data, based on the characteristics of that. And then reinforcement learning, this is where we actually do a trial and error, where we let the algorithm make the determination by itself, and then we correct it if necessary. Now let's take a look at some examples here. Self-driving cars. I think everyone in here has seen a Tesla. Everyone in here knows about the full self-driving feature. But what is crazy to me is Waymo. Who here has heard of Waymo? All right. Well, I'm from Michigan, so we don't have Waymo out there. And when I came to the West Coast, I was like, what the hell is this thing? So I was in Phoenix, and I see this Jaguar driving around with a bunch of things spinning on it. I was like, oh, it's one of those Google cars, taking pictures of the road. And then I look, there's a sign that says Waymo. And so I do a quick Google search, and it looks like it's an automated taxi service, and there's no one in the driver's seat. And sure enough, that's what it was. Tested it out myself. Remarkable. Unbelievable. I would have never thought we would be here 10 years ago. Personalized recommendations, right? We watch YouTube videos, and we get those ads for things we're thinking about, not the things we're browsing. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I was thinking about something, and then there's an ad for it. And I'm like, is there something in my head that's collecting this data? Facial recognition, right? We see that with our phones. We see that with access into banking accounts. This is even more prominent in Asian countries. Fraud detection, right? And then let's take a look at some of the benefits. So with machine learning, we have improved decision making. Now we're not letting the humans make the decision. We're making those decisions based on data, based on logic, and based on analysis. So the decision making is improved. Enhanced accuracy. Again, there is no human error anymore because everything is based on the data. Better customer experience. Going back to the Waymo, sometimes after a long day of work, I like to sit in a car with a taxi driver and not talk. And so having Waymo in there, just nobody in there, it's nice to just have them drive me home after a long day. And of course, enhanced cybersecurity features. Now, some of the challenges with machine learning is data quality. So when the data is poor or there's insufficient data, it's not good data, well then the data quality is bad and we cannot use the algorithm sufficiently. Overfitting and underfitting. Finding the right balance to avoid too complex or too simple models. Interpretability. Now, a lot of these models we find are sort of black boxes. We don't really know how the model works and why the models, these AI models, make the decisions that they actually make. Because they're black boxes, we don't know how it actually works. And then overall cost, right? Machine learning is very expensive. There's a substantial computing power necessary and resources, which obviously means more money. Now let's take a look at generative AI. So generative AI, the technology is large language models, transformers, neural networks, retrieval augmented generation, training data, reinforcement learning as well. So there's a lot going on with the technology, but I think people are most familiar with generative AI because the likes of ChatGPT, Copilot, Midjourney, right? Google Gemini, some of these deepfake technologies, right? I think the first deepfake I heard of was someone was impersonating Joe Biden, right? We see that as well. And the benefits of using generative AI is enhancing creativity by generating new ideas. You use very little brain cells. You just go into Midjourney, you go into Gemini, and you say, hey, show me a picture of a dog with sunglasses, right? And boom, there it is. And not only that, you get 4 options to choose from. Automate repetitive and complex tasks. So if you have certain tasks that need to be done every day, and maybe they're the same thing, maybe they're different, you can actually have these tools automate those tasks to make your lives easier. And I'll show you actually some examples of that a little bit later. Improves personalization and user engagement. Faster time to value and reduced time to detection when in context of a cybersecurity incident. And some of the challenges we face with generative AI is ethical concerns. So what if we get a data set with misinformation or deepfakes? And then we also have maybe some intellectual property issues. Quality control is a big concern as well, because we need to safeguard these tools. Because if we don't safeguard these tools, the attackers are going to get control of it, and then they're going to use it, obviously, for malicious reasons. Bias in training data. This is something we probably deal with every day right now. And an example of that is some of the bias that we've seen in Twitter prior to Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, right? Some things were deleted or removed off of Twitter. Freedom of speech, I guess, wasn't a thing. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the other problems. And then obviously malicious use in different cyber attacks. So in the context of cybersecurity, let's talk a little bit about how machine learning and artificial intelligence could be used today. So we use machine learning for user behavioral analysis. So taking the data of what a user normally does, collecting that data and building basically a profile, saying this is John Doe, this is how John Doe interacts with these files, this is the time of day John Doe interacts with these files, and then look for those anomalies. Malware detection. We can very easily use machine learning to detect the characteristics and attributes of a file to make that determination if it is malicious. Phishing detection, same thing. We can break down emails very granularly to understand, is this a malicious email? Is this a phishing email? Is this email meant to deceive? And then we can use machine learning to automate incident response. And then, of course, we talked about fraud detection. So on the topic of artificial intelligence, we use it in many different ways, but the majority of this is streamlining and automating. So using artificial intelligence, we have advanced threat analysis, automated threat hunting, so we can streamline this process. And I'll actually show you examples of this and make some comparison to the old way of threat hunting to now the new way of threat hunting with AI. Same thing, security orchestration, just automation. And really, faster time to value for threat detection and recommendation. We're able to identify threats quicker and make the justification of what to do with those threats, right? Do we eradicate it? Do we make a quick change? And so, what is Barracuda doing to fight back? Well, introducing Barracuda XDR. So Barracuda XDR is a unified cybersecurity platform that helps businesses detect and respond to threats. And so the term XDR, for those that haven't heard it or are not familiar with it, it stands for Extended Detection and Response. And this is a platform where we are ingesting log data and collecting information from all of these categories. So your cloud technologies, your email environment, your endpoint protection, your network security, and your servers, your critical servers. And what we use and what we integrate with our XDR platform is a security information and event management tool. That is a SIM. For those that don't know what a SIM is, definitely go home and read up on a SIM. It is something that and everyone in the cybersecurity space will need to learn about and really master. SOAR is another thing we include in our XDR platform. SOAR stands for Security, Orchestration, Automation, and Response, another very useful tool to streamline things. And we have an extremely large threat intelligence feed that results in over 11 billion indicators of compromise. So in a nutshell, we have 11 billion ways to make sure a threat is in fact an actual threat. And all the rules that we create to detect are based off of the MITRE ATT&CK framework. And who here is familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK framework? Okay, perfect. Haidar, you're doing a good job. These guys know what they're doing. So the MITRE ATT&CK framework is absolutely necessary to understand for any cybersecurity professional. For those that don't know, the whole goal behind the MITRE ATT&CK framework is to identify, detect, respond, and mitigate different types of threats based on the tactics and techniques used by attackers. And total, there's about 215 techniques in the tactics and techniques in the MITRE ATT&CK framework. But wait, there's more. So we talked about XDR. We talked about how it relies on the MITRE ATT&CK framework. Introducing Barracuda's own AI. We call it Sage AI. So Sage AI is using some of the most advanced AI models. So Amazon's Anthropic and Microsoft's OpenAI. And with Sage AI, we run it on a hyperscale infrastructure. We train it with cybersecurity data. We train it with threat intelligence. And we have our XDR playbooks and runbooks that our SOC team creates. So let's take a look at how Sage AI can work with a real scenario. So we use Sage AI and ask it a simple question. Can you please provide me a list of IOCs, indicators of compromise, such as hashes, IPs, URLs, email domains, and malware used by APT28? And of course, very quickly, it is able to output all of the necessary information we need. So this is streamlining the process for investigation. You no longer have to open up 10 different tabs and search for this. Again, another example. Are there any CVEs APT28 is known for exploiting? And then the AI tool outputs a response, and that response highlights a vulnerability in Microsoft with NetLogon Remote Protocol. It highlights a vulnerability with SharePoint, and it also highlights a vulnerability with Microsoft Exchange. So other than using Sage AI for a prompt, we actually train Sage AI for anomaly-based detection. So how anomaly-based detection works is if a user normally signs in from California, and maybe their whole life they've signed in from California, they've never left California. Why would you, right? It's nice and sunny here. But then all of a sudden they get a sign in from Bulgaria, right? So Microsoft might not say, oh, hey, hold on a second, that sign in is unusual. They're gonna let that sign in happen. But with a proper AI model analyzing this data, we can point out that anomalous activity. So I wanna talk a little bit about how we've used Sage AI with Barracuda XDR in a real world scenario. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story. We have an organization that we provide XDR for. This organization is based out of the UK, London specifically. And so what we learn is that there's this one user, we'll call him John. John signs in from London. 96% of all of his logins have occurred from London. So that's generally speaking where he works from and where he signs in from. And in the context here is Office 365. And John then goes on vacation to a place he's been to before, and that is Cape Town, South Africa. And so you could see 3.6% of his sign-ins have occurred from this location. So he's been there a couple times, he's traveled there, he's signed in, checked his emails, no big deal. Except on his personal laptop, he received a phishing email. He opened up the email, he clicked on the link, it redirected him to a fake SharePoint site. He entered in his credentials, and we have a compromise. So our XDR service was able to determine this compromise fairly quickly, and the anomalous activity happened in Moscow. And what we were able to obtain in terms of the data after the analysis using Sage AI is that this was traced back to a Russian state sponsor group, and that is APT-28, which is also known as Fancy Bear. And based off of the information we were able to gather, the different characteristics, we were able to confirm that this is the group that was able to compromise this user account. So very quickly, using this technology, we were able to eradicate this threat by immediately finding out about this sign-in and processing the necessary next steps. Now let's take a look at some of the alerts we've issued in the past. And again, all of this data is gathered using our AI model, using our SIM, our SOC team. And so what we're looking at is an alert for an anomalous activity. By the way, this is not the full alert, this is just a quick snippet. And so what we're looking at here is an anomaly sign-in coming Thursday, March 28th, 2024. This sign-in occurred from the Netherlands, and we have the IP address information. We can also sometimes pull the device ID if it's within the log data, but we can also see how far outside of the normal baseline this sign-in has occurred from. And we can see that this sign-in occurred about 5,400 miles away from the norm. And so what we learn from the norm is we built a profile for this particular user, and after a 90-day baseline average, we've confirmed that this user typically signs in from Santa Clara, California. We have the typical sign-in IP address as well. And so we do that comparison, and we also do a threat intelligence lookup automatically using our Sage AI platform. So what we do is an investigation of that IP address immediately. We actually score it on a scale of 0 to 100, and we give it a score, in this case 22 out of 100. So the score is not actually too high, but we're still marking it as suspicious. We're also looking for any malicious detections. We're looking if this is a proxy. We're looking if this is a Tor exit node for dark web access. We're looking to see and understand what is the ISP. And also we check various repositories like VirusTotal, Mist, Barracuda, and some others that give us insight. Has this IP address been blacklisted anywhere? Is it marked as a known malicious threat anywhere? Now another example, back to what I said earlier, is traditional threat investigation versus using AI tools like Sage AI. So a traditional security operations center analyst would typically have 6, 7, maybe 8 tabs open up in Google Chrome, Firefox, whatever the case, and they would have different threat feeds, right? VirusTotal, they would have Cyber6Skill, they would have all these different threat feeds. And what they're going to do is anytime they're evaluating something and trying to understand something, they would go in and type in those indicators of compromise, type in those characteristics, a URL, an IP address, a hash value, whatever the case is, and then they would get an output. And then every tab, they have to go in and read what the output is. Whereas with a tool like Sage AI, it's unified. We type in the characteristics, and it gives us a full evaluation of that IP address, of that hash value. So we get everything sort of unified. So the goal here is really to make your lives a lot easier. So what I have here is a quick demo to show you in action how this service works. Basically, how we leverage AI to thwart an attack. Number one, identify an attack immediately, but also thwart the attack. So hopefully you guys can see this. So I'll kind of talk through it so there's a little bit of an understanding. Basically, we have our Kali Linux instance pulled up, and we're attacking from a .21 IP address, which traces back to Albania. And what we're doing is this very simple nmap. We want to see if port 22 is open across a list of public IP addresses. And what we find is that the first IP address here does have port 22 open. So for those that don't know, port 22 is the SSH port. So now that we know port 22 is open, we're going to initiate a brute force attack over SSH. And we've just specified some basic login information, some password information, and it's going to run through this attack until we get a password match. And eventually we do get a password match, as you can see there. So now that we have these credentials, we have successfully brute forced the appliance on the other end of this public IP address. And so what we're going to do now is try to establish that SSH connection, except in real time, we're able to sever all communication to and from that IP address. And so if we take a look at the actual alert we issued on behalf of this behavior, the first thing we issue is a notification of the actual brute force attack and all the data that goes along with that brute force attack. So you can see which IP address it came from, which user accounts attacked, which firewalls attacked. You have the IP threat intelligence lookup, you have the raw log data, you have a plethora of information to look at. And so if we go back up and look at the actual second alert, you'll see that we send a notification of the automated threat response action that we took. So as you saw, that threat response was immediate. It was real time. But we send a follow-up alert saying, hey, this is what we did, and this is why we did it. So in this case, we're referencing some of the data I showed you earlier, but then we're telling you, hey, on your FortiGate firewall, on this local IP address, we were able to block this public IP address due to this behavior. And so if we actually pull up the firewall and we go into the addresses section, you'll see there's an address list. And this address list is labeled, or group is labeled Barracuda XDR blocked IPs. And so what happens is that as we're evaluating this behavior, in real time, we have the ability to use our API connection to the firewall and immediately sever all communication by blocking that IP address directly in the firewall. Pretty cool stuff. So how does a technology like this affect businesses? So let's take a look at business email compromise, right? A normal business email compromise usually takes approximately 1 to 2 months to resolve. Why does it take that long? Well, it takes that long because usually when an attacker gets into, let's say, a Microsoft 365 environment, they're not going to go in and start changing stuff right away. That's an advanced persistent threat. We want to sit there as the attacker. We want to look at things, collect information, find the high-value target, maybe make a lateral movement, maybe stay on that same user account. But for the most part, these attackers just kind of remain there. They're hanging out and collecting information. And so you only find out about it once that email forwarding rule is created, once large masses of amounts of emails are sent out, once those indicators are shown. Whereas using a tool like XDR, we can actually bring that time down to under 2 hours in terms of the resolution. And it's really because we're able to determine that compromise much quicker, so we're able to act on it much quicker. And really the trend is the same across all of these examples here. Identity theft, 3 to 4 weeks, we take it down to 1 to 2 hours max. Malware infection, 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes there's malware on PCs like spyware, just adware, just annoying stuff. And users don't really realize it or they sort of live with it. And so it stays on systems for prolonged periods of time, and we can, under 1 hour, eradicate it, identify and eradicate it. So I want to talk, in a nutshell, the importance of AI and machine learning and cybersecurity. Just 4 things I kind of want to highlight here. So threat detection, right? If I were to kind of summarize this in really 4 bullet points, threat detection, we accelerate the time it takes to detect and minimize the impact of these undetected threat actors because we're able to detect it much quicker. Automation and efficiency. Enhancing threat and malware investigation through automation, providing more precise and tailored recommendations and response procedures. Predictive capabilities. Applying supervised and unsupervised learning like we talked before. To predict potential cyber incidents from historical data sets. And then adapting to the evolving threats and threat landscape. So utilizing machine learning and AI for dynamic detection engineering to stay ahead of those emerging threats, staying ahead of the curve. But we're in kind of the weeds here. I want to go back to the basics. And so this is something I share with a lot of businesses. And the reason why I like to go back to basics is because you guys are cyber professionals. You guys can talk this talk. You guys understand this. But the CEO of the business, they don't know what this is. They don't know what this means. This is way over their head. So what you need to do is communicate this to those executives so that they have that understanding and they know the importance of cybersecurity. They know that they need to spend maybe more dollars on these tools or these procedures. And so what I always like to present is the essential cybersecurity hygiene steps for any business. And there's 5 basic steps here. Step 1, establish what you need, or establish what needs to be protected. So as you go work for a business, or maybe consult for a business, you need to understand where is the data, What is that important data? Is it a file server? Is it out in the cloud? Is it in SharePoint? Is it an application, right? And once you have that understanding of what is important to that business, you build concentric rings of security around that important data. And a lot of businesses do this already, if I'm being honest. So a lot of businesses know what's important to them, and then they'll get a firewall, they'll get a spam filter, and they'll get endpoint protection. And so really it's those three things. Those are the most common three things. But it's more than just that, right? Those three things were the norm maybe 15 years ago. That's no longer the norm. That's not enough, having those three things. And so where the big leap is, where the big disconnect is having monitoring in your environment. So this is where businesses often kind of fail to take that next step, is having proper monitoring so that you can see those threats, and then you can act on those threats immediately. So without monitoring in place, you don't really know that a threat or an attacker is in your environment. Having monitoring in place ultimately reduces the response time. Now, when you know about a threat, when you know about a compromised Microsoft 365 account, you're not going to just wait. You're going to jump on it immediately, sign the user account out, lock their account out, reset their password, reset their multi-factor, all of that, right? And that's going to happen instantaneously. And that leaves the attacker no chance to do anything. And then lastly, one of the most important things, securing your people, your process, and your technology. I've consulted for businesses. I've worked internal for businesses through MSPs. Securing your people is just as important as the technologies you use. Now, why is that important? Let's take an example here. If you're working for a business and you and 99% of all the employees in the business don't click on phishing emails, spam emails, nothing malicious, they don't enter in any credentials where they shouldn't, but then there's that one user. That one user maybe just got hired in, and they clicked on the email, and they entered in the credentials, and they're compromised. And then they get ransomware on their computer, right? And then that ransomware spreads to the entire company. So that one user literally ruined it for the entire company. So I always live by the saying, you're only as secure as your most unsecure person. So securing your people, training your people, is, like I said, just as important as having all these cool technologies like the XDR in place. Process, right? Securing your processes. Examples. I couldn't tell you how many times I've walked into a business and there's a sticky note with the person's password on the monitor or under the keyboard, right? One or the other. And so, those are those things that we really need to hone in on as cyber professionals. We need to really harp on these people and make sure that they are not doing those types of things. Another example is tailgating, right? Maybe you're going into a server room, you use your badge, you get in, and someone follows you. No, you gotta close the door. They have to use their badge, then they have to go in. So we have to be really strict about this stuff. And then the technology, right? We talked about the technology, but it's more than just technology. It is road mapping, right? So one recommendation I always have is have a roadmap idea. Have a standard you're working towards. If you're a consulting CISO, if you're a VCIO, if you're a cybersecurity consultant for a business, have a roadmap, have something the business can work towards. So frameworks like NIST, like ISO, like CMMC, right? And it all depends on the type of industry. But having those sort of guidelines to work towards really gives the business something to work towards and also eventually heightens their cybersecurity posture. So where do you go from here? That's a good question. I just talked with Haidar earlier before this presentation. And it sounds like a lot of you are already kind of working in at least the IT industry, cyber industry. Is that the case? Who here has a job already in the cyber industry? Okay, a few of you. What about the IT industry? Not cyber related, just IT. Okay, so some of you are still looking. So some recommendations I have, just kind of going through what I've went through being in the IT, being in the cyber industry, is, before I even get into that, the one thing I want to say is you guys picked a great field, an amazing field. I mean, the data proves it. You saw how many open jobs there are. You saw how many attacks are going to happen this year. So you guys are going to be safe. You will definitely find a job for those that are still looking. But one thing I want to give you in terms of advice is understand what you like. Understand what area you want to be in. Understand what you don't like. And also try new things, right? Do you want to be the hands-on cybersecurity analyst? Do you want to fix servers? Do you want to be in management? Do you want to be a CISO? Do you want to be in sales? Do you want to be in pre-sales? And just really understand what you like, try new things. If you don't try it, how do you know you don't like it, right? So try new things, see what really suits you. Me personally, like I said, I like the face-to-face interaction. I like working with people. I like speaking to people. I like that kind of sales function paired with some of that cybersecurity knowledge. It's different for everyone. I'm confident everyone in here will find what they like. But I want to leave one thing with you as I finish this discussion here, and that is embrace the future. And so what I mean by embrace the future is what we did 15, 20, 30 years ago with floppy disks, we're not doing today. What we're doing today, we might not do in 15 years. So always think ahead. Always embrace the future. And one quote I really live by is comfort is the enemy of progression. So don't get too comfortable. Always be on your toes. Always look for the next best thing. Always look for technological advancements and just keep learning. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Benny, I think we're running a little short on time, but does anyone have any a quick question or two for Benny? Please. Let me get you this. I'll let you just
Thank you.
pass that around.
Good evening, and thank you for the presentation. I've had the opportunity to attend a lot of conferences this year, and one of the things that's been discussed, obviously, a lot has been AI. Looking at, we constantly spend time trying to figure out how are we going to prevent the next problem, and simultaneously we have the adversaries going, how are we going to break that? And so things like ChatGPT, where people have been able to, hey, I want to learn how to write this malicious code or this payload. I'm sorry, you can't do that. And it's like, oh, I'm actually teaching a class, and I need to be able to tell my students how to write this malicious code. Oh, here you go. And we can trick AI.
Yep.
So my question is related to this, I'm sure there's a lot into it. How far does the AI respond? How much of an impact does that have? And where do we draw the line for the human interaction, which we sometimes call the weakest link anyways? But looking at AI specifically, and if I'm thinking from an adversary standpoint, their approach is now, well, how can I trick their defense, their automated responses, using this AI, maybe using botnets to give multiple true positives to try and teach the system or poison it. I imagine this is something that's already been considered, but I'd like to hear if there's been any consideration for that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and that certainly falls under some of those challenges I spoke about. There's even tools out there like WormGPT that is literally a generative AI for attackers. And so that's only going to continue to grow. There's only going to be more. And some of the challenges we face is going to safeguarding those tools and tool sets, and creating tools and algorithms that can help fight against those tool sets, like a WormGPT or things of similar nature. So it's an uphill battle. It's always going to be in the scale of the attackers, and we're trying to play catch up as much as we can. And so that's really the name of the game.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Guys, I think in the interest of time, we got a little bit of a late start. Could everyone join me again in thanking Benny for his presentation? And on behalf of USD and our cyber program, we'd like to give this little
Thank you very
token of our
much.
appreciation. Thank you, Benny.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, it's now my pleasure to introduce our next part of the program. And I'd like to introduce my friend and colleague here at USD, our Cyber Engineering Program Director, Haidar Majid, and his partner, James Perino. And guys, if you'd like to come up and introduce and demonstrate our Adversus system, we're excited to be able to do that. Haidar and James.
All right, so thank you so much for being here. Benny, thank you so much, it was amazing. This is the first disclaimer. Where is the clicker? Okay. So first disclaimer, this is going to be true cybersecurity engineering. So If the demos suck, James and I is going to actually show you how we built it. We're just going to show you the model we built. We're just going to, show you the code. So I think I have some of my students here sitting. They can attest to this. A couple of days ago, I had a gentleman coming from Firefox, the company, Mozilla. He presented an amazing speech, and he talked to us about a new project called Odin, zeroidn.ai. And he said, look, this is what we do. We actually attack AI models. So if you really know what you're doing, and you can do it, he said the average sometimes takes about 3 days to attack an AI model. And my professor, he said, hey, could you just, I know you like AI stuff, could you sit in the class? And then, so about like 6:20, he started basically talking about how to attack AI models. I was like, well, actually, let me give it a shot. So the tool I'm going to show you today is what I use to make about $400, checks to be made yet. Basically, testing if ChatGPT is really secure or not. So is the tool really, we don't even have a name for it. We call it adversarial machine learning. So the tool kind of, you'll see what it does. So there's a couple of things that James and I is going to show you. So, but first, I'm the program director for cybersecurity engineering. Also the first cohort to go through the program. It's been an honor. I was hired to teach, hired to lead the program, done some hands-on building here at the University of San Diego, and now I have the pleasure to work with Mark, who is the business genius here, James, prospect students, also currently doing engineering, and Izhar Ali, also prospect student with our cybersecurity and AI, and also helping me with what we're building. So what is the problem here? So just like Benny said, like cybersecurity just is an amazing field. But really we spend a lot of time just setting things up, and I hate that. 90% of the time I'm just like downloading dependency, making sure they work, and then by the time I'm done, it's like 90% of that, I only have 10% to actually do the thing I want to do, which is protect something or hack something. So is manual, is time wasting, is inaccurate, is static, the tools we use. So I think the problem, and this is obviously bold statement, but it's a small problem, is really introducing AI with humans working with AI. So that 90% dependencies and checking is the boring thing is done by AI, and I'll do the creative 10%. So to do this, obviously I have to build my own model. But to do this also is very difficult. So we experiment with like open source models. So we built something called agentic cybersecurity framework. But to set the stage, what is an AI model and what is an agent? So if you use ChatGPT, this is a model, right? It's trained to be general, on massive data sets. An agent is a little bit smaller. It can actually tackle like a task-based, basically a little more task-oriented than very general trained model, right? It's a lot smaller. Obviously, you guys, if you use ChatGPT, if you go there, you can create your own GPT, and you can give instructions. And so basically, we took the same kind of approach to build this. So we built Arvises to do threat modeling, attack simulation, and we have a co-pilot in it, and it could also answer like questions about like requests for proposal and things like that. So what we're going to demo today, there's a lot of things I'm going to say. Please feel free to connect with me afterwards if I'm going too fast. So we're going to do threat modeling using OWASP and Stride. And in cybersecurity, there's 7 steps to hack something, right? So we're going to demo the reconnaissance. And the tool we're using, actually, just for the interest of time, we couldn't demo all of these, so we're just going to start with reconnaissance. And we're going to show you how, in terms of automation, how it could retrieve answers and things like that. So cybersecurity, my first job. I go in there, impress the person interviewing me, and said, hey, let me show me LinkedIn. I was like, actually, let me show you my GitHub. And that's exactly how I make $250,000. And instead of showing my actual LinkedIn only, let me show you all the open source stuff that I downloaded, I messed around with, and this is exactly what I do for your company. I do this I don't even have a job right now. I'm just having fun. Imagine if you hire me. It's exactly how they end up hiring me. So they give you, to do threat modeling, an architecture like that, and say, hey, you have to basically decompose this step by step and understand what the threats is and so on and so forth. So it's very complex. Example for AWS and Azure. You typically have to go through steps like this. You define objectives, you create the application, and you decompose the application, you identify threats, you identify vulnerabilities. It's very manual, and it used to take me literally up to 5 to 6 weeks, because some of these applications use multi-cloud and so on. And again, by the time I'm done, is not good. So we wanted to take this as an example and say, well, can we actually cut the steps from this to this? We just upload the architecture. We have our trained AI model look into it, create very detailed reports, and also allow me to ask questions about it. If my boss say, hey, did you really do your job? I was like, well, check it. Go ahead and ask anything about it. So that's what we're going to try to show today. Where we are at the intersection between attack simulation and pen testing. Because we can, just like we did threat modeling, we think we could do the same for attack simulation and pen testing, where we can automate all of that. So we are in the middle of attack simulation and pen testing. We're thinking integrations, code testing, cloud integration, and so on. So we're going to go through the demo, and then feel free to, again, ask questions afterwards, please. So I'm going to try kind of go fast. All USD students will have access to this. Very soon we'll be releasing this as part of the program. And so really something you can get access and use and contribute to as well, if you also have the ability to do so. And now for the demo, I think we just have to switch to the demo.
There we go.
All right, so abscess. Again, finger crossed, live demo, nothing recorded. Recorded things is kind of boring, so. All right, so the first thing you want to do is you see what you've created in the past. So any assessment I created, I'll have kind of snapshot. I can see, okay, so my boss come in here and say, okay, so for our first assessment, we use OWASP. It seems like risk score is a 4, and then I can chat with it, I can edit it. But let's create one from scratch, James. Create assessment. We're going to give it a name. And we're going to, by the way, we can use multiple different plug-and-play models, but we're going to go with Stride. It's a web application. Let's say it handles confidential data. And yes, it's being used by internet. And also, let's say it doesn't have any authentication. Click Next. And instead of me manually reviewing everything, I have a trained model that will review the architecture and actually create, describe it, understand what the architecture is, and it's gonna say, here's the description for this. Does that make sense? And if it does, so again, very complex. You can see many, many different parts. Even professional cybersecurity, senior cybersecurity will take a few hours just to understand how everything working. So the model describes everything there and says, hey, would you like to edit it or this accurate? Let's assume this is accurate. I'm just gonna say next. And, sorry, hit next. So let's stop James here. So we have two different options. We know DoD, they would never touch anything online. So we have something completely offline. You don't have to have internet to use this, by the way. Could be completely online. So, but for the sake of the demo right now, because for the, we're just gonna use the ChatGPT. Next. So the model is going to take the architecture, and we're using Stride to analyze that. So we're gonna create a very detailed threat model. We're gonna create visual attack tree. We're gonna assign cybersecurity score for each of these threats based on the Stride model. And we're gonna create mitigation, list of mitigation saying cybersecurity. I'm gonna show you what the risks are, and I'm gonna help you how to mitigate these risks. And to take a step further, I'm gonna show you if you are really a red teamer and you wanna take these these risks and actually try to exploit them, there's also a really nice test case where you can say, hey, this is what you need to do to exploit these. So this is exactly what is happening behind the scene. Now, how does that work? Really, there's a lot of things. We have data sets that we train the model on that can recognize an architecture, recognize the framework, and then actually create mitigation at time, assign risk score, and these risk scores based on really any model. Tomorrow, if you say, well, this is cool, can I have this for my PCI DSS financial? Yes, you can. All you have to do, you plug in the standard, you train the model, and then the model starts recognizing what you want to. So what do we have here? We have a very detailed report James is going to download, and then he's also going to save the assessment. Sorry, my apologies. Oh, wow, yeah. I was speaking to myself. So here's the detailed report. It's showing us, I'm using Stride, all the things I plugged in at the beginning, and we can go through the assessment shown. Again, this is a really good thing for compliance. Someone can actually say we've done the job. We show you what we tested, the threat model using Stride, and then we go down to the attack tree as well. So If you're a visual person, you want to see an attack tree, there's a very detailed tree actually created as well. And then really the rest of the report as well, where everything we've done behind the scene is printed on this report. Now the cool thing, I hate PDFs. I don't want to read this. I just want to come in and say, hey, you know, can I chat with it? So James is going to save it, go to dashboard, and we'll be able to see what we created. Risk score is 6. And then now I can actually chat with it and say, well, can you tell me more about this? So James, let's summarize what we did, because I don't really have time to go through. Again, this is small architecture. This could be 60-page PDF. So you probably get what's going to happen next. AI is going to tell you all about it, because everything what we did, we take that data, we vectorize it, we store it in a database that is vector database where the AI can actually understand, and it can retrieve in seconds, right? And you can ask follow-up, and everything you have is going to be joined knowledge. So this knowledge is going to be joined with anything else. So James, I think they definitely get the point here, because we all use ChatGPT. So let's go to request for proposals. So I used to do this all the time. We have a product in my company, and people say, hey, we want to license your product, but we want to make sure it's secure. So there's some sort of request for proposal, which they send you 600 questions, right? And then I receive these questions and I have to go through a ton of documentations to find these answers. What encryption do you use? What do you do? And I hate that. The first thing I had, like I said, this has to go. All I have to do, I go to my Excel. Let's say there's 600 questions. I select all of them, and I just say, hey, go to my knowledge base documents. There's about thousands of documents there where these answers kind of hidden there. Get the answers and bring them to me. And I'll show there's a way to verify the AI is not actually fooling you, it's actually bringing the right answer. And you'll see in seconds, I have all my answers. So James, let's take, again, they get the thing, we're going to get all of the answers, no problem. So let's actually verify these answers truly belong to the question. So we're not just, making things up. So let's take a question, James, and go to the platform. So we're going to go to the AI and say, again, assuming there's thousands of documents, and this answer belongs to these thousands of documents. So basically, it's going to go and retrieve the exact same question, the exact same answer provided to us in Excel. So what that really do, like all your salespeople, like they're actually in your department, and instead of coming to you information security, hey, do we use encryption? What do we do for this? You don't have to do any of this. You give them this and say every single knowledge is offline. There's no internet access, and you just ask away, and you'll get the answers. And if they have more questions, they can ask more and more and more. Now, what we demoed, just to recap, the threat model assessments, and basically Copilot chatting with things, and autocomplete. Now let me show you the really cool part that I'm actually really, really excited about. James.
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
James is going to do his favorite thing.
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to dark mode, because we're going to actually start doing some coding now.
So every time James and I use it, we always switch to dark mode because it's hacking.
If I could put a hoodie on, I'd put my dark hoodie on and I'd start getting to work here. So the first thing that we're going to do is, as Haidar was showing, let me actually pull this up here. I'm going to show you guys a cyber kill chain, right? So in the slides, Haidar talked about the cyber kill chain. So the first step of this is reconnaissance, right? So what we're going to do here is we've collected some of the most common reconnaissance tools here, and we've put them in this list, right? So the first thing that we're going to show is I'm actually, because I have permission, because it's our own website, I have permission on Adversus AI to actually test this out. So I'll run these selected tests, and you'll see the terminal output here. And just so you guys can see a little bit more clearly, I'll make this.
Let me explain what's going on here. So James and I said, James, look, there's literally 6,000 tools in Cal Linux, and I love all of them, and I want to use all of them, but I can't. Like, there's too many of them. So can I have AI really just, give me the top 10 or the top 20 and help me just run them by just say, hey, run, I want to attack this target. I just have a URL, and I want to collect every single information out there about it. I can just give it to my AI and say, hey, go collect all the information. It's going to do that. It's going to collect the information. Now, I have intelligent AI linked to Kali Linux, and now it's going to tell me, okay, well, because maybe it's too much information you don't know, you don't want to go through it. Let me tell you what happened. The chat has direct knowledge of the output that we receive from Cal Linux. So James, what are we doing here?
Yeah, so just as Haidar said, we have all of the knowledge of this terminal shell that we just ran in the memory of our LLM here. So it already knows exactly what I'm doing and how I'm trying to do it. But let's say I want to ask something specific, right? I have this little pop-up here. I can just add it to chat, and I can say, can you elaborate on this? And how can I test it further?
By the way, we tested the exact same thing offline and work with no internet. So if you're in the desert and you want to hack something, now we can.
So it's going to give me the output here, right? And so we actually have this hooked up to a Kali terminal as well. So if you guys want to run something that is not standard in those list of tools that we just showed, we can actually go ahead and do everything that we would do in a Kali Linux terminal, right? So then I can say, okay, from this output, I want to keep going, right? There's a few tools that I want to check, right? So you guys have seen that we just ran the port scan and everything like this. So let's say we want to run something like SQL map, right? So we also have a feature in here. If you just hit Control-K, you can actually type a command here, and in plain English, I can just say, run SQL map on adversus.ai. I'll hit enter, and then it'll go ahead and try to run it. Now, as you guys will see, this is an empty Kali shell, so it says the command's not found, right? If you guys have used Kali before, you guys can know that one of the first things you guys want to run to do.
So let me explain this, James, quickly. So again, we do this all the time. We try to run a tool and it doesn't exist. And I have to go to thousands of websites to download it and find out how to download it. And now I just read all I have to do. It will tell me I don't have it, and I say, well, in plain English, go get it. If you don't have it, then install it. And it will put it in my command, and it will run it, and it will install it for me. And I just say yes. So as we do this, also, really, we got so excited creating this. Like, this is the first time I created a demo, and I've created a couple different products and sold them. It's the first time I created a demo when I said, I can't really, like, this is going to be too dangerous to actually show everything. Because, like, all the things I'm showing you, we're just collecting data. But the rest of the process, you'll be actually able to attack, like, targets continuously. Because all I have to do, I can say, here's a target. Every single Cal Linux, I want you to run against this target. And if you don't know, you know, as an agent, ask the chat. The chat have knowledge of the internet, the entire internet. Ask the chat. And if the chat, you know, figure out the answer, we'll push it back to the terminal, and it will go back and forth till this is either cracked or crashed. So, James, what we did here?
Yeah, so I asked the tool, I said, hey, download SQL map. I don't know the command how to do it. It downloaded it for me, right? So now I tried to run it, and I got this output. It doesn't seem like this is the output that I was expecting. It says no parameters found in testing. Okay, this is very common. Normally, if I didn't have the help of AI, I'd have to go start researching documentation. How do we do this, right? I can just add it to the chat, and I can say, why didn't this command run, right? It's going to tell me the answer, it's going to give me the solution, and then we'll fix it right here, saving us so much time for people doing pen testing or any other types of cybersecurity stuff. So it's going to say, look, use the crawl option, right? And I'm cheating a little bit because you can actually see it right here in the output here, but it's saying you guys didn't use the crawl option. So I can just go up, run the command again, I'll do --crawl equals 2, and now we'll get a little bit better output, all with the help of AI.
So, again, this is something that we have, again, if you ever use Cal Linux in the past and you know it's very difficult to install and so on, now really is in your browser. And if you hook up to an offline model like Llama 2, Llama 3, you don't need internet. But really the point here is, again, I went through the program at USD, and every single person gone through the program wanted to go get a job. I wanted to go build a company. That's the difference. But to build a company, I had to learn a few different things, really. So if something I want to leave you guys with is really, it's very exciting time right now to build something. Because, again, James got years of experience in engineering. Same thing for me in cyber, build the products. But really, like, I would say, 65%, 75% of this built by AI too. We just know what to do. We just go to AI. And again, I told you guys, if you need ever have a session with me, my students outside, to say, hey, sit down and show me how you built it, I can show you how. It's really, really exciting and really easy. But at the same time, we know hackers now are able to build something really quick as well, right? So this way, you know, like the job market is going to be amazing because there's always going to be problems there, and we have to be there to defend and protect. But really is no longer the time where, well, I don't know what to build, I don't know what to do. Now we have AI agents that can actually build things for you. It can actually code for you. And no, it's not going to take your job. I think it's going to make your job amazing. It's going to give you more things to do, more time to do cool things, because now there's an AI that actually doing your job. And because of compliance, I don't think AI is ever going to be able to take your job. It might improve it, but do you know who's going to take your job? Someone like me who's used AI for everything. And my company uses AI, so either going to make your company go out of business. So really, all you have to do is just like weaponize yourself with these tools and technologies, and you'll be fine. But the field is changing, and I really think we need to change the tactics of attacks, tactics of like defenses as well. So how are we doing on time, James? We're doing good? Yeah. So another thing is we have people coming from outside, like actual companies. Mark and I talk to all the time, saying, hey, we really can't hire like 5 people, paying them $150K. Like, what can we do? How can we give students the skills they need to actually serve us? And they could do, 3, 4 things instead of just 1. So again, I go from class to class, talk to students, inspire them to actually go build tool. I'm here with you. Your professors are here with you. We can actually help you build something, because really that's how we learn. And that's how you eventually go impress an employer, by showing like your GitHub full of like things like this, where you can build while going through the school. So this is what we actually kind of building here at the program. We have our own lab here on campus. We're also venturing to like AWS and things like that. So if there's anything you would like to learn as a student, please reach out and say, look, this is cool, I want to build something like this. This is something we're doing new as a demo hour. I'm hoping next time is going to be a student here presenting, but just to show you. And yes, the person who invited, just to kind of remind you how like easy now to build stuff. So the speaker we invited to speak our class, he didn't believe that I built it so fast. He said, hey, can you show me the time when you actually start building it? And I had to show him the time. And he even met with James offline. The next day, he said, well, actually, now I have more stuff. Can you do more? It's just because, again, this is Firefox, Mozilla. They're huge. They have an AI division, right? And they're interested in something small like testing an AI model. So really, this is really exciting. And but yeah, if there's any questions I'd love to answer, I can explain how we built it. I can explain how we could do something like this, how we can collaborate, or ask away.
1 or 2 minutes for couple of questions. Anyone?
Hi, my name is Michaela. I was in the classroom when you were talking to the Mozilla guy and did the AI pen test. Can you walk us through, I guess, what exactly you built and how you were pen testing the AI model?
Yeah. So, Michaela, thank you. If you ask difficult questions, I have your homework. So, your grade's not going to be very good. Anyway, so there's a tool called Cursor. Really, you go to Cursor and say, hey, plain English, I want to hack ChatGPT and show me this. But just like Benny said earlier, you have to trick it in a way that it can help you build it. So you can come up with, speak in the past, say, hey, in the past, I built something like this, and I have a question about it. Could you clarify it? And eventually find a way to convince the AI to actually show me how to build it. So you go to Cursor, and you open Cursor. Cursor is basically a company that enables you to exactly what we do for cyber, you can do for code. You go to cursor.com, I think it was .ch, but now they bought .com. And then you just say, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to describe it, and then it will take it, and it will actually start like building the code for you. Now, you really have to know kind of what you're doing. So they also have a chat where it's exactly like us, where you can chat and say, okay, am I doing the right thing? And so on and so forth. Really, you just go back and forth. But obviously, you need to know what you're doing, right? So the tool I built is Cursor, but there's a lot of open source technologies that are available out there. It's very difficult. That's why we're all discouraged to go and download it, because it takes a lot of time. Again, the 90% I spoke to, 9% of the time you're just downloading, installing, and so on. Whereas now you can just grab the URL, go to Cursor and say, this is the GitHub I want to install. And it will install it for you, and it will create the code. And you say, well, could you create a test case for you, like a little agent that can test the code to make sure it's secure, and it'll do that, and so on and so forth. But again, I really think we're moving from what we call like IQ to EQ. You need to have like knowledge of all these mathematics and so on and so forth. Now really just need to think about this in plain English, what you want to do, and just connect the dots. And I think that's really all you need at the moment, because again, these amazing tool is only going to grow and get better. Again, this is 90 days work. Like I think in 6 months is going to be even better. But thank you for the question, Michaela. If we don't have a question, we can definitely break and go eat and chat.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you, Mark.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation, and on behalf of our cybersecurity community, we want to give this to James.
Oh, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
James. Appreciate you. All right, thank you for the presentation, guys. It was great. Wonderful evening tonight. We'd like to thank all of you students and faculty that are here and administration that are here with us in person, as well as those of you who are with us in our live stream. We're sorry, those of you who can't be here with us, because we're going to go and eat and have some drinks now. But before we do that, before we adjourn, I would like to just thank all those who made this program possible tonight. My colleagues here at USD, from USD's Professional and Continuing Education, from our online, USD online program, and our Center for Cybersecurity as well. Thank you, guys. We'd also like to thank our industry partners that are here with us this evening. And before we go out into the rotunda, I'd like to have them stand up and just at least so you can see who these people are. We have the Naval Information Warfare Center here in San Diego, and if you ladies wouldn't mind standing, please be sure to go by their booth. We thank them for being here tonight. We also have Women in Cybersecurity here with us, the organization. I don't know if they're in here with us, but they may be outside, and they're ready to go. Please be sure and stop by their booth as well. And again, we'd like to thank Data Link Networks, Dawn and Brian, for being here tonight and helping to put this together for us. We appreciate them. We'll now adjourn out to the rotunda, and again, thank you for being here with us tonight. And I hope you enjoyed the evening. Be sure to ask a lot of questions out there. Thank you.